Why a first responding police officer at a shooting of a person of color didn't provide first aid for the victim. The first police officer to respond to the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia testified in court recently that he did not render first aid to Arbery due to the danger of the situation as well as his lack of medical training and equipment. You believe this? Welcome to Radio Labio's English program, where I share the most interesting notes of the day that you may not have had time to catch up on. I'm Juan Andres. I podcast in English and Spanish to ensure that all Latinos can have access to our programs regardless of what language they speak. And by the way, thanks for listening. A former Glenn County police officer said when he arrived at the scene of the shooting of Mr. Arbery in February of 2020, his immediate focus was on officer safety. When I get to a scene, I scan the area for any immediate threats, and then I scan the area for any immediate victims that need emergency medical aid, he explained. So far you go, okay, all right, that sounds good. You give a quick look, make sure you're not in danger, and then scan the area for emergency medical aid. But wait till you hear what happened. This officer who testified said he was in the area responding to a report of a suspicious black male before hearing two loud pop, pop sounds, and he came upon the location of the shooting and said he saw two white men pacing back and forth while Arbery, a 25-year-old black man, was on the ground bleeding from his wounds. These three white men were Gregory McMichael and his son Travis, and their neighbor William Roddy Bryan Jr., and they were all charged with malice and felony murder in the shooting of Arbery, who was jogging in a residential area before being chased by the men who were in the vehicles. Bryan followed the McMichaels and recorded video of the shooting. The officer identified the trio in court as being at the scene. Now, come on. Stop to think. Whoa. Right here. Bryan followed the McMichaels and recorded video of the shooting. So they're going out hunting with their guns, and they get a neighbor to record it. What, for entertainment? You want to go home and show everybody that you're a good hunter? This is unbelievable when you stop to think of this. I mean, it's frightening to think that this is going on in the 21st century. He testified that after seeing Arbery lying on the ground, we're talking about the policeman, he notified dispatch to send emergency medical personnel to the area, then worked to preserve scene integrity for investigators. Now, wait a minute. He first said that he first looks for officer safety and then he looks for victims. He didn't say anything about scene integrity. Don't touch that shell on the floor. Don't move here. Don't move there. It's too emergency. They're not going to kill me, and I got somebody that's injured. Let me attend to him. You don't go around now walking, let me see, there's a shell over there. I got some chalk in my pocket. Let me make a circle right here. Oh, and there's over there, let me make an arrow so they won't miss that there's something over there that looks funny. And, let me trace his body with chalk. Oh, yeah, here's his neck, here's his arm, here's his leg. Okay, I've traced them. You don't do that. Scene integrity. You don't do that. You make sure you don't get shot. And if anybody's been shot, you immediately go to help that person. You don't go around waiting for the people. Come on. If you call 911, well, he's going to call on his police thing, so it's going to be a little quicker. They're not 2 minutes down around the corner. It's going to take a few minutes for them to get there. Meanwhile, you're whistling and protecting the scene integrity while this guy's bleeding to death. Come on. There's a reason I'm sharing this with you, Mr. and Mrs. Latino. Okay? Now, Arbery happened to be black. And this was at night. At night on the floor bleeding, fully clothed, and you got a head of hair, and you're brown, and the policeman comes up on you, you're not going to look much different on the ground bleeding than Arbery, especially if you got a cap on. So you got to be careful and pay attention and avoid getting yourself in a situation where you even need the police. Now, most policemen are very good. But all you need is a do-nothing like this guy. This guy wasn't bad like the guy that put his knee on the neck and physically strangulated, lynched. What's the difference whether it's with a rope around the neck on a tree or whether they put the knee on your neck and strangulate you? It's the same damn thing. Not as bad as that, but it's a do-nothing. Let me walk around while he's trash. Let him die. Who gives a hoot? And that's what we're going to feel about you. And I'm going to tell you something. Most Latinos that think that they're fair-skinned, there's an equal amount of African Americans that are just as fair-skinned or lighter-skinned than the average Latino. And with a cap on, you can't tell the difference. So you got to be careful. That's why I'm sharing this. When asked by the prosecutor at the trial how Arbery appeared, the officer said he was face down and looked unresponsive to his surroundings. He appeared to be deceased and noted the amount of blood underneath him was exceeding the perimeter of his body. He continued saying he heard from Arbery a type of labored breathing that he knew and called the death rattle. And he had encountered similar situations in the past where people did not survive much longer after the death rattle. He's walking around securing the scene and listening, paying attention. You gotta be, and this guy's breathing. And the cop hasn't touched him. He hasn't even so far as walked up and used his foot to nudge his arm to see if he gets a response. He just heard the rattle while he's walking around looking for casings and chalking and everything else. And he hears the rattle. He hasn't touched the man on the ground bleeding yet. Man, this makes me so damn mad. So the prosecutor asked the officer if he performed CPR, which is right, the most logical thing. You got a guy that's dying. Did you at least try? Did you turn him over? Did you blow some air in his mouth? Did you push his chest? Did you try? No, this guy just heard the death rattle. Didn't touch him. To which the officer said no, stating he didn't because I did not know any of the people or any of the facts or circumstances to what had happened. No, this is a policeman, he's trained. You got 3 white men, 1 with a camera and 2 with guns. And you got a black dead man on the floor. And what do you have to know them? Oh yeah, that's Billy. I have beer with him on Wednesday. Oh hey George, how you been? And you're taking the photos, Sam? I'll be darned. What kind of phone do you? You got a good phone, huh? Oh, you got an iPhone. Wow. You got to know them to be able to give the guy CPR? This is stupid. I did not know any of the people or any of the facts or circumstances to what had happened. What do you mean you don't know the facts? The guy's got a rifle and the guy's on the floor dying. What do you think happened? He got shot. You need more? Let me tell you. This is insane. Being that I was the only officer on the scene without having any other police units to watch my back, there was no way I could have switched my attention to anything medical and still be able to watch my surroundings and watch after my own safety. Now imagine if 9/11 comes around and this guy is a firefighter. You think for 1 minute he's going to go into the building that's tumbling down to try to save lives? Which, by the way, many firefighters do, and policemen put their life on the line to save others. This schmuck says that I could have switched my attention to anything medical and still be able to watch my surroundings and watch for my own safety. Meanwhile, he's hearing the guy with the death rattle. He knows the guy's almost at the end. He hasn't touched him yet. Hasn't even turned him over. Didn't give him any CPR. He also told prosecutors he did not have the adequate training to render aid, and his vehicle lacked proper equipment to help gunshot wounds or critical injuries. Now give me a break. All right, you guys are listening to me. All right? You have a neighbor that's on the sidewalk, breathing, the rattle. You won't even try because you don't have training? You don't know how to open his mouth and blow some air in and push his chest? My 6-year-old knows how to do that. This is a policeman. What a ridiculous excuse. And he lacked the proper equipment. What do you want, a ventilator? Huh? You wanted a medical kit? Give me a break. This makes you think that you let the guy die because he's dark-skinned. He's a darkie, all right? He's a person of color. Anyway, graphic footage from the officer's body camera was shown to the jury by the defense team in an effort to show inconsistent statements made by the former police officer, arguing that his response time to the scene was off, which means that he didn't get there when he said he did, and he didn't do what he said he did at the time he said he did it. The video shows Gregory and Travis McMichael pacing near the body of Arbery. They're walking back and forth now. You know, hey, we shot him. I'm sure they heard the death gurgle or cry or whatever you want to call it. And they're walking back and forth, all right? And they can be seen there wearing their jeans and a t-shirt. And what's interesting about this? Travis McMichael can be seen wearing jeans and a t-shirt with blood on the back of his head and arms. Now, when do you shoot a rifle You have to put it through your armpit, put your thumb, okay, and then pull the trigger, and you're not even looking because the back of your head doesn't have eyes, and then kill somebody, and then the blood splatters on the back of your head and the back of your arm. How did that blood get there? You're shooting somebody, you're looking at him. How did the blood get on the back of his head and on the back of his arms? And this policeman who's trained, I'm not trained to anything. And I can look at this and I'm going, this is so stupid. It just infuriates me to even have to share it with you. But these are the kinds of things that you have to protect your family from. If you're an African American and you're an Asian and you're a Native American and you're a Latino, you have to be aware that you might get lucky and you might get a good responder. But if you're unlucky and you get this jerk, and there are many of them in police forces all over the nation, so it's like shooting craps, it's like go to Vegas and give them $1,000 and let them spin the wheel and see how many times you're going to win. With your luck, you'll get one of those. You'll get one of these turkeys. And you're a dead man. Avoid getting yourself in a situation. I would tell Arbery, and I'm talking to you, Mr. Latino, I'm talking to you, Mr. Native American, I'm talking to you, Mr. African American, I'm talking to you, Mr. and Mrs. Asian, don't go jogging in the God-blessed night. It's dark. No one's around. There's no witnesses. Do not jog at night. Rule number 1. And if somebody's coming after you in a truck and you see the truck barreling down, get the hell out of wherever you are, go into somebody's yard, knock on their back door, do anything to get somebody to be a witness. Don't stand there and do nothing. This is where Arbery screwed up. He might have gotten shot anyway. But at least there would have been somebody that said, yeah, he knocked on my door and I looked out the window. I didn't even open, but there were people shooting at him. Prosecutors played the extended version of William Bryan's cell phone video of the chase and shooting for the court. And that's a doozy. How'd the blood get in the back of your head, on the back of your arms, and you're supposed to be shooting the guy in front of you? Arbery's mother saw the video showing the shooting of her son for the first time in court, and she just hoped, sad situation for the lady, that the video would show that the jury that her son Arbery had done nothing wrong before he was killed. Now remember, this is an African American mother who knows there's no justice, who knows that the police isn't going to be there for them, who's in pain anyway because she lost a son, and all she cares about at that moment in time, she's already lost a son, but African Americans and many minorities are so used to losing members of their community that they're sort of, you build up an immunity, you know what I mean? It's not something you ever get used to, and it's not something that you can ever accept, and you go through this pain, and it hurts, and you grieve, and you have to go through this whole session like everybody else. But you do it with a hardness. You know what I mean? You don't break down and fall down into the middle of the street and become a puddle of... You've seen it so many times. You hear it so many times. You're aware that that exists, that there's a hardness about you. But that doesn't mean that inside you're not as fully hurt as anyone else, regardless. And here's this woman in pain. but proud, and saying, I hope that this shows that my son is not a criminal. That's disdain. And I could understand her. She further said, I'm hoping that the jury, I'm going to use her words, I'm hoping that the jury see what the world see, is that my Ahmad hadn't committed no crime, his mother said. He was simply out jogging. He did stop by that unoccupied home, but again, Ahmad didn't commit no crime. He was chased, and eventually they killed him. Be careful. Be careful. Think about what you're going to do. I know that we're here, and this is a wonderful country, and 90% of the people that we're going to meet, if we pick the right state to live in, are going to be wonderful people. But you have to be careful of those few that are not. Don't go out jogging at night and don't look for trouble. Think about what you're going to do and protect yourself, because the minute something happens to you, you've just sacrificed your family, your wife, your children. We're going to miss you. You're not going to be there for them. You're not going to be able to work to give them a better life and a better education. It's an expensive price to pay that minorities have been paying for the last 200 and some 300 years. It's a shame. It's getting better, but it's not gone. And you need to understand that. I'm Juan Andres. You can find us on more than 60 sites on the internet where you can listen to our podcast. Just ask Google Radio Labio and they'll show up. And you can pick one, and it's very easy to find us nowadays. On my behalf, as well as my colleague Yvonne Encinas, and our manager and fellow on-air personality Francisco Maldonado, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.